Welcome into the Volquest Mailbag Podcast each and every Thursday out here at Volquest.com and, of course, on the YouTube channel. Pound that like button. Try to help us get to 500 likes if you're watching this on YouTube, and subscribe also there as well. Hey, $1 for 1 year. Got Kentucky coming up in a couple of days. Tennessee is 7-0. No better time. The deal's not going to last forever, so jump on it now. $1 for 1 year over at Volquest.com. I'm Eric Kane with Austin Price, Rob Lewis, and Brent Hubbs. Mailbag edition of the Volquest Podcast. It starts now. Let's get started with Vol_fan89. Where would an 11-1 season with a Sugar Bowl appearance but no playoffs rank UT since the 1998 season? Would it be better than 11-1 team that went to the SEC title game appearance but only made the Citrus Bowl? Brent Hubbs.
Yeah, it would be better because of how Tennessee finished that 0-1 season, right? When you look at the fact that Tennessee was in line to go to the national championship game and play for the national title against Ohio State, but they failed in the SEC championship game against LSU and didn't get there. So to me, this would be, Rob, a better achievement if Tennessee does it. It would be unexpected. That 0-1 team was thought to be a good football team. This one's kind of come out of the blue. You've got a win over an Alabama team breaking streak, a Florida team breaking streak. And then 0-1 Tennessee was still relevant every week in college football, and that's not been the case for Tennessee the last few years.
I mean, 0-1 ended on a disappointment. I mean, just kind of like you touched on. I mean, you went to Gainesville and had already, meet you at the airport on the way home, and then you went, to Atlanta a couple weeks later and lost to a backup quarterback at LSU. And even the one game they lost that year, Hubbard, the Hobnail boot game, I mean, that was they lost at home to a Georgia team everybody expected them to beat. I don't think there's any comparison for how this would be viewed big picture wise from 2 months ago. You and AP fist fighting over where they're going 7-5, 8-4, and then they end up 11-1. I mean, I think that would be look back in hindsight several years down the road as a phenomenal get back year.
Well, and to Rob's point, I think part of that, the ecstasy of this season is the fact that, it's been so long and Tennessee had that downturn. So everybody's hungry, right? I mean, everybody craves and has craved this type of season for so long to finally get it, as long as Tennessee keeps doing what they're doing. That's what makes it so special. To me, it's the 85 Sugar Vols. This will be a team that will be talked about 30 years from now. No matter what happens the next 10, 15 years, this is a group, if things continue to go the way they're going, they will be talked about in the same vein as the 85 Sugar Vols, the 98 National Championship team, that those special teams with special players, just because of the moment and where Tennessee went and pulled themselves back up to.
Absolutely, Eric. I mean, when you look at this is not a team that was ranked in the preseason. The expectations were that they would maybe take a step, in year two under Josh Heupel, but not like this. And the most favored teams, the teams that fans remember the most, right, Eric, are the ones that come out of the blue and surprise people. Those are the most beloved teams, are the teams that kind of shock everybody. And certainly this team has exceeded everybody's expectations to this point.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And it's the teams that where that you have improved, you have playmakers, but you also still have some deficiencies, and you kind of rally behind those shortcomings and still, just kind of bank on, what your team is good at. And this team is great at offense. This team has a great quarterback. And so I think this season and this team certainly has a chance to be remembered for a long time. Now, there's some big time games coming up over the next few weeks, and how they finish it, of course, like Rob was talking about that 0-1 season, you don't want to finish on a sour note, but we will see. Sam Smith, 22-33, with Brooks struggling to get the ball to the end zone on kickoffs. Do we see them make a change with Kentucky having an elite return man? Rob, what are you most looking forward to in watching the Gonzaga scrimmage? Let's start with Brooks, Austin. Paxton Brooks, he's not looked fantastic on punts, but this is a kickoff question.
I don't think he has a problem getting the ball. I think they strategically kick the ball the way they do. Eckler loves to do different stuff. It's not just bang it through the end zone every time. And, he likes to try to angle things and try to pin guys. And, maybe I'm wrong here, Hubbard. I don't see it as a problem. I think this is by design, the way that they've had him kick off. I'm not saying every time, but I would say 80% of the kickoffs that have been short of the goal line have been designed that way.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if that was a design in the Martin game. I didn't think I didn't think Paxton Brooks carried himself particularly like when he walked on and off the field. I'm not trying to overanalyze like was that a limp or was that not a limp and all those types of things. The leg did not seem as strong. I mean, there was certainly some of those that were returnable. Martin made a decision not to return them. Maybe they never return kicks, right? And so the design was, hey, don't wear your leg out here. Just get it down to the 10-yard line or 15. They're going to fair catch it anyway. I mean, Brooks is going to be the kickoff guy unless he's in warmups on Saturday and can't do what they want him to do. Barion Brown is a challenge. And so, I think Tennessee's cover team can handle that. I think you're probably more comfortable with touchbacks if that's what you can do in this game. But we'll see how Mike Eckler and Josh Heupel elect to play it in the special teams game. I think a lot of fans would like to see this thing through the end zone and not have Barion Brown with a lot of touches.
Yeah, I believe it was Josh Heupel a year ago. And if this was Jeremy Pruitt a couple years ago, I apologize. But someone asked the question, do you want to kind of pin them deep back there and all that? And and he essentially said, no, we want to kick into the end zone and then kick into the end zone. But a lot of times with as well as this cover unit is playing, that could be a Mike Eckler thing. Rob, the second half of this question, what are you looking forward to watching in terms of the Gonzaga scrimmage?
Looking forward to, I mean, I don't know if I've phrased it that way. I mean, I'm interested to see what Tennessee looks like in the post. I mean, they have any post offense outside of Olivier. It would be my biggest question mark for the team.
Let's go to Rising Fawn Vol. In your opinion, what is the ceiling for the following in terms of average starter, all SEC or all American for a couple of backups in Squirrel White, James Pierce, Joe Milton, and Caleb Perry? Austin, if you want to start this one off. Squirrel White, James Pierce, Joe Milton, and Caleb Perry. What's the ceiling for them in terms of All-American, All-SEC, or average starter?
I think the ceiling for James Pierce is All-American if he gets there. Again, it's about getting to that point. But I mean, I think to this point, you see a kid that's got extreme, he's explosive, he's got burst, and can pack a punch. Caleb Perry, I don't know. I mean, maybe he could, grow into all conference type guy, later in his career. Squirrel White, I think all conference type player later, in his career. Who's the other one?
I believe it's Joe Milton.
Joe Milton. I don't know. I got to see it from Joe. You can see he's improved. He processes things better than he did a year ago. But he's not playing when the real bullets are flying. He's out there with the 2s and 3s. So I'd love to see him with the 1s just to see what he could do to have a better feel for that.
James Pierce is the most talented guy out of that group. He's got the highest ceiling if he puts everything together. We'll see. Receivers in this offense are always going to be productive. I think if you're talented, Rob, they're going to have you in a position to be successful. What all that looks like in terms of accolades and all that stuff, I don't know how to qualify it there. We'll see how some of those guys develop, but I think the most talented guy out of that group is James Pierce.
Hubbard, I mean, I think we're getting ready to have to take a different look at receivers, not just stats for this program. I mean, I think I've read what you've written this week. I read it myself. Tennessee's had 9 1,000-yard receivers in the history of the program. They're getting ready to have 2 back-to-back years in Cedric Tillman, unless Jalen Hyatt falls off a turnip truck in the next 4 weeks. He's going to have 1,000 yards. And so they're getting ready to have 10, and 2 of the 10 have been in 2021, 2022. And I bet they're not going to be the last. I'm going to hazard a guess. I bet they won't be the last ones Josh Heupel has.
Yeah, what a bold take there from Rob Lewis.
It's a little different offensive football that Tennessee's playing. So receivers are always going to be successful. I think what's interesting about the receivers thing, and I know this is not a question, but I think the question to me is going to be what kind of rotation. We had all this talk in the preseason about playing more, a bigger rotation of receivers. I think that's going to be hard to do with the way this team plays offense. As fast as they score, you're going to take your best guy. Let's say this week, okay, you're going to have, you're scoring so fast. I don't know that you're going to ever play 6-7 receivers in this offense. And if you don't score, it's a 3 and out, right? It's a short drive. It's not like you're going to have a lot of 13 play drives that take 4 minutes and you rotate guys in and out. They happen so fast. And I don't know how many drives you want to start without your best receiver on the field unless there's an injury deal there. So I don't know that this will ever be a deep rotation of wide receivers out there for Josh Heupel and his staff.
It's going to be tough. You'd have to see maybe you are subbing at that position a lot of times at the beginning of drives because, again, it's a challenge there. So something to pay attention to whenever Cedric Tillman does get back in the fold, if that is this Saturday, and kind of how those snaps would go for him, Brew McCoy, and Ramel Keaton, who's played really well the last 6 weeks. So move on now to Gen 3. Couple of questions here. Brent, let's start with you here. What underclassmen, you can include red shirts if you like, have you seen this year that makes you think this guy's going to be a stud down the road, one from each side of the ball?
Well, we just talked about it. I think James Pierce, if he puts it all together, has got a chance to be an elite pass rusher. I think he's got a chance to be a really good edge guy. I like Tyree West. I think he's going to be a really good player as well. I do like the production of Caleb Perry, but I've got to see him against some of the best. I mean, it's hard for me to go way down the road with Caleb Perry right now, Austin, because you haven't seen him do it against quality competition at this point. So those are some guys that jump out to me on defense. Offensively, we haven't seen him enough, but I still hear a lot of buzz about Chaz Nimrod. I think he's faster than everybody thinks. I think of those freshman receivers, he would have been a guy who could have potentially pushed to perhaps play some this year had he not had the foot injury, Austin.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. I do think that he was getting to that point where he was going to be, maybe where Walker Merrill is now. A guy that is the fourth or fifth guy. Again, as you pointed out just a second ago, I don't think that this for 2 years we all talked about wide receiver rotation, but a year and a half in, right? I think we've all figured out, they're probably just never going to have this massive rotation. I'd like to see Caleb Webb. First and foremost, I'd like to see Hawk get Caleb Webb and Chaz Nimrod out of 81 and 84. I'm a big numbers guy. It's terrible. But
Randy Moss says, "Hold my beer."
Offensively,
what's wrong with 84? AP, come on.
Hey, listen. Again, to Eric Berry's point, you make the number, right? He wanted 10, he got 14, he just made 14. So, go back to defense. I'll go Elijah Herring. I like Elijah's game a lot. I think he's going to be a factor, like a long-term factor defensively. And I do like Tyree West a good amount. I know we're going to talk about Josh Josephs, but he's played quite a bit. Continues to play quite a bit with the ones. Dylan Sampson offensively, the more he figures it out, the better he's going to be. And so the one area where I see Tennessee's got to really attack right now is tight end. They've got to go get tight ends in the portal, and they don't really struggling depth-wise there.
Rob, of the young guys that played against UT Martin, like lots of snaps defensively. I mean, I'm not saying that any of those guys played bad, but Tyree West was the only one that jumped off the page to me. So, I do think that he's going to be a pretty decent player down the road. Got a couple other questions here. Let's go, AP, back to you. Still Gen 3. Gaining any traction with Stanton Ramil?
They continue to have conversations. I mean, again, I think it ultimately ends up, does he visit or not, right? I mean, any of those kids that are committed elsewhere, unless they take a visit to Tennessee, it's just hard to see Tennessee flipping them. I know they've been here, but I think you need to reacquaint yourself with the school when you've committed elsewhere to be a legit flip factor.
And then one more, this could be for anybody. What defensive back who is committed, do you think has the best chance of challenging for a major role next year? It's always challenging to have a major role as a freshman, but if you had to pick one, Austin, who would you say?
Jordan Matthews. Yeah, I'm in agreement because they need corners. They need help at corner. And Jordan Matthews can play corner. I think anybody that can play corner is going to have a chance to help them in the secondary next year. So I would go definitely Jordan Matthews.
Let's stay on the recruiting trail. Nashville Vol 615. What current commits are planning to enroll early?
Most of them. Most of them will be here. Some of them will be here for bowl practice. Jordan Matthews.
Better way to phrase it, I guess, would be who would not, not is going to be here early.
Again, there's going to be a couple of guys that probably don't make it early, but, some of them are still trying to get here. So, we'll see how that shakes out. But there's going to be a few of them, Jordan Matthews included, they'll get here and go through bowl practice, which is something that, you saw a couple of guys go through a year ago, which is something we saw a long time ago. Then it kind of went away. Now you're starting to see it more and more, where kids get out early and go through 4 or 5 days of bowl practice and then head back home before they get here in January.
Let's go next to R. Berger. A couple questions here. Honestly, love this matchup for Tennessee. Tennessee appears to have a significant edge along both sides of the line of scrimmage. Rob Lewis, how do you think Kentucky will defend Tennessee?
I think they're going to play a lot of zone and try to keep stuff in front of them. I mean, after what you saw happen to Alabama and, the way Jalen Hyatt has just been, getting on people and getting deep, I will be surprised if they don't try to keep things in front of them. Defensively, that's my guess right now is heavy zone.
Brent, do you see a situation where Kentucky might play a lot of heavy DB personnel like a dime package?
Yeah, I think they will. I mean, I think that they're going to their biggest concern right now, I would think, is not getting the ball thrown over their heads, trying to make Tennessee be patient, drive the football that way. I think you saw a little bit of that out of UT Martin when you look at Tennessee's opening drive. What was that? A 13-play, 77-yard drive. UT Martin was clearly saying, hey, you're not going to throw it over the top of us. We know what happened in this game a year ago with Tennessee getting the 2 big plays early on their first 2 possessions. So I think Kentucky will want to keep it in front of them. I think the one thing that's encouraging for Tennessee fans is what Tennessee did in the second half against Alabama. When Alabama tried to go dime, Tennessee was content to run the football. And that's something that Alex Golesh has talked about, is the need to be more patient running the ball. Didn't feel like he was patient enough running the ball last year, particularly in some big games, and that hurt them, whether that was Ole Miss or whether that was the Alabama game a year ago. When teams went with those extra DBs and emptied the box, they still tried to throw it a lot. If Kentucky's going to go light in the box, then I think Tennessee's going to be content to try to run the football. And they were pretty successful last year. They averaged 5.4 yards a carry last year, and a lot of that was on Hendon Hooker. But they had 145 yards rushing last year, and I think Tennessee is a better running football team this year than they were at this time a year ago. So if Kentucky wants to do that, I think Golesh has got the patience to run the football and force Kentucky to adjust out of that zone if they can't stop the run with their front 4, their front 6, 7, whatever they got up there.
Yeah, because Tennessee can still go fast by running the football and in the quick passing game. If Kentucky's going to sit there and let Tennessee go 6-yard pass, 6-yard pass, 6-yard pass, I think Golesh and them are very patient when it comes to that, because they're still moving them right down the field. I mean, maybe it doesn't happen in 47 seconds, but the speed they go with, even at 6 yards a clip, 2.5 minute drives right down the field, if Kentucky's going to let them.
Let's get one more here from R. Berger. Do you think Tennessee will be able to handle a Kentucky rushing attack without too much safety help? I love the idea of putting the game on the number 1 pick in the NFL drafts, that quarterback shoulders. Austin, I think you and I both have mentioned Danico Slaughter a couple times this week. I think Tennessee it'll be a team effort, a group effort to corral, run to the football, and kind of keep everything in front of them in terms of that running game. I think the safeties will have to help out with this.
Yeah, I do too. And I think that like the fact he likes to get downhill and lay some wood is a good thing in this game. But yeah, I mean, I'd be shocked. I think all of us would be shocked if Tennessee didn't try to load up to stop Chris Rodriguez and make Will Levis beat him. Again, Levis had a nice game against Tennessee a year ago. A lot of teams had a nice game against Tennessee's defense a year ago. A lot of quarterbacks did. So, we'll see how much they've improved this year. But I think part of the improvement will be the lack of pass blocking by Kentucky, because their offensive line has struggled to this point, and Tennessee is I just think better up front, better in that front 7 than they were 1 year ago.
Now, they've got to tackle great in this game, and it's going to be a collective effort. I think everybody's got to be involved in tackling. Rob, Chris Rodriguez had over 100 yards after contact against Mississippi State in a game he rushed for 196. One guy's not bringing this guy down quite frequently, so Tennessee's going to have to rally to the ball.
And secondary has had some missed tackles in SEC play. They had some last week in UT Martin, but especially in SEC play. And yeah, I mean, I think they sell out to stop Rodriguez, but man, I mean, if you just look at the numbers, 3 SEC games, Tennessee's given up 1,200 passing yards. One of them was a Heisman Trophy winner. Two of the quarterbacks were decidedly not Heisman Trophy winners. That they gave up, 750 yards to AR-15 and Jaden Daniels. So, I don't know what football Jesus Will Levis can do to him this weekend, but I would still sell out to stop Rodriguez and make them beat. And we've talked about this. I just don't. Kentucky doesn't scare me at wide receiver. I think they really miss Wan'Dale Robinson, and I know they've had some explosive shots, but I think most of that's been off play action. Barry and Brown scares you, but you can't die a death by 1,000 cuts with Rodriguez going 5, 6, 7 yards a pop. I mean, you got to make them live in third and long.
And Robinson was terrific last year against Tennessee. He had a terrific game against Tennessee. He has changed. It's changed their passing game a good bit. I think that's why you saw some of those early struggles from Kentucky before they got Rodriguez back. Now they feel like they've got a little more balance. So we'll see where Tennessee's at with those guys.
But I think you can make the argument, and I spoke on this with Jesse Simonson earlier this week, that top to bottom in terms of a receiving group, you throw tight ends in there as well. They have more options. I mean, Barry and Brown and Dane Key, outside of Ali, who was hurt a lot last year, and of course Wan'Dale Robinson. You might have a better group there, more balance and more options this year than you did last year. But Wan'Dale Robinson, he was drafted in the 5th round. It's an NFL guy, so I mean he's going to be tough to replace.
I mean, they don't have anybody at receiver in the top 10 in yards per game, touchdowns. I think I kind of disagree. EC. I mean, I think you take Wan'Dale out of that equation, and Barry and Brown is a super talent, but he's also getting ready to play his 8th college football game.
Yeah. Let's go to loud noises. At best, Missouri finishes 5-7, 4-8 more likely. Is Coach Eli Drinkwitz going to make it one more year? Also puts the caveat here, they're also currently dead last in the conference in recruiting this cycle. Brent, do you think Eli Drinkwitz makes it through this season?
Yeah, I think he probably gets a third year, right? I think that's a situation where I don't know where they are financially. I don't know what his buyout is. They've got some young players. I know there's a lot of people mad that they're not playing Sam Horn up there at the quarterback position. A lot of fans are. There'll be a lot of pressure on him. I think he would have to make staff changes, but I'm not sure Missouri's in a position where they want to spend or capable of spending a ton of money on a buyout. Who can they get? All those factor into play. I've not heard him as a guy who's likely out. You don't hear the chatter around him like you do Brian Harsin. So my guess is that he's going to be back, but I don't follow Missouri closely enough to know whether or not he's for sure going to be back.
I mean, you throw Vanderbilt out, it's always going to be the worst. Missouri's the worst job in the league. I mean, what are they going to do? We've all been there. I mean, it is not an SEC stadium campus program, in my opinion. I mean, it feels like
it was a glorious morning in October, cold, wet, rainy. There's about 15,000 fans in there.
They don't even have one end of the stadium filled in. You call yourself an SEC team?
The M with the rocks. The M with the rocks.
The rocks in the grass.
The way they keep the weeds out of those rocks is next level. I know Sam's dad was a member of our site, before, and I don't know if he still is or not. It makes me wonder, like, does he regret going to Missouri? I mean, it's just such a, like, football just seems so stagnant there and dead. And of course, it's easy to say Tennessee's undefeated right now, but just the way they throw it around, and I know baseball was a part of it too. But when very
our entire trip there for me and Austin Price last year can be summarized in the first 5 minutes we were on campus, setting up to do the 2-minute drill right outside the stadium. We hear screeching behind us on the road, and pow, we had one car rear-end another, and said, oh, well, that's the Missouri experience. It didn't get much better from there in terms of atmosphere, elements, weather. It was fun getting there and getting home, though. I will say that. Dan Zaval, anybody wants to know, or he wants to know any update on Cedric Tillman, Austin Price?
Yeah, I mean, he's been practicing. Again, I think, as everybody said, it's up to him and Coach Heupel. I think he plays Saturday. Maybe I'll be wrong, but it certainly feels like he's going to play Saturday to me.
Yeah, I think the question is.
You got Hubbard.
I think the question is how many snaps, what kind of condition.
I don't think he's playing the full game, but
I think that he's probably far enough along that they're comfortable getting him some snaps. Now, Rob, if he gets to Friday and goes to their deal Friday and has some pain and has some issues, then you shut that back down. But I would think that they want to get him whenever he comes back. I would think it's not going to be a, hey, he's back, 76 snaps. You're going to have to ease him into it. So the faster you can get to that point, the better off you are if you're Tennessee with what's going on the stretch.
And I think the Ramil Keaton renaissance makes that real easy for Tennessee. I mean, you can play him 12, 15, 20, whatever it is. I mean, you can ease him in this week against Kentucky, and then have him ready to go in Athens next week. Now, I don't think he's going to make his Friday racquetball time with AP this week. I'd shut that one down.
Pickleball, man, pickleball.
But I mean, I think
you be playing either one of those is a disaster.
Let's go to Rocky Top, Matt. A lot to unpack here, so let me get through this. Can you explain how NIL works in recruiting? Do the recruits sign deals with Spire or individual companies? Are recruits promised a certain dollar amount or certain deals? Or do they just talk in terms of what the potential value is once you get on campus? Once they're on campus, how much actual work do the athletes have to do to get the money promised to them by Spire or the collective Austin Price?
Well, first off, unless they're in a state that allows you to make money, kind of like California, you can't sign a deal with a collective. No school or no kid can sign a deal with a collective at any school until they're on campus. And a lot of that is just, again, it's a marketing advance, right? It's a marketing value. Kids that don't tweet a lot, don't Instagram a lot, don't have as big a following, NIL wise, aren't as valued as ones that do. Now, we all know that it plays a role in all recruiting and all sports across all of college athletics. So let's not act like it doesn't. But at the same time, all schools, I think, are very, very cognizant of, not getting caught in an inducement. So, again, there's a lot of hypotheticals until kids get there, and then, they kind of go from there. Now, once they're on campus, and they come to a deal with whoever, whether it's a collective or a certain business, they have to, fulfill the terms of the agreement. So, like, the agreement may be 2 social media posts every 30 days for the local car wash, and so you see player X tweeting about the local car wash 2 times a month, or Instagramming about it, or Crystal or whatever. You've seen Crystal playing that Bojangles with some players. So if it's just signing with a collective, it could be something as simple as appearances, whether it be at events or signing autographs or doing media obligations or whatever. So, like, a lot of different factors go into it. But, again, all colleges or all schools are very cognizant to not get caught up in inducements, which, again, it's hard to prove, but I think schools are very cognizant of that. But it's absolutely in play with recruiting. And if you don't think it is, you're silly.
Well, and it's in play because every kid is asking, what is my earning potential in your program? What can I do? Now, here's where I think the challenge is long-term, big picture, not Tennessee, nationally, NIL, is getting players to understand it's not a salary. It is what your marketing value is worth, meaning player X's marketing value may not be as high as player D. And it may be that a guy's got good marketing value because he's really good on social media, but he may not be the best player on the team. I think there's a notion right now, because this thing just kind of fell out of the sky, Rob, when it went online in July without any rules, that there are a lot of kids out there that says, what are you paying me to play football? What's my salary? And that's not the case. There are some requirements for you to get that money. You look at Bryce Young from Alabama, go to his Instagram page, guy's peddling everything, right? I mean, there's some things that you have to do. I think that's the next step in education of NIL for student athletes, to let them know it's not just, you're not just getting a check to play your sport. You're getting a check to do the marketing side of things in conjunction with playing that sport. And I think that's a tough thing to get 18-year-olds to understand.
Yeah, 100%. And honestly, a lot of these kids, they want to get paid to do nothing. I mean, like, it is what it is. But I mean, like, you have to fulfill some obligations. Otherwise it's pay for play, whether it's, a kid on the current team or not. So, the biggest thing is, getting kids to understand, hey, you got to pay taxes on all this money. Like, that's what I worry about that long term. I mean, I hope there's, a lot of good education going on out there about, taking care of yourself with what you make, putting away money to pay for the taxes, all that stuff.
Yeah, paying taxes is
I
not
think it's
fun.
a good thing, and this is. I mean, this is happening a little bit. I know in basketball, and I would imagine it will get bigger. It helps that the families and kids have agents, and like good agents, like realistic agents, so the families have a realistic idea. Yeah, well, and so the families have a realistic idea. I mean, it's not like I want $1 million, right off the.
Hubs, what movie was that from? Quick. Come on, Hubs. Austin
but
Powers.
Seriously, I
mean,
if I know, it's not as lucrative for an agent to deal with, NIL stuff, but I would imagine that as we get further into it, there'll be some guys that specialize in it.
Yeah.
And it will be easier for colleges and easier for families to have an agent in there that's done, 20 of these deals and be like, you're not getting $10 million, but here's what the last guy that was kind of in your position got. And, I think it will not be so much wild west as we get further into it.
I agree with that because it takes the emotion out of it, Eric. The family says, Timmy's worth this, but you got an agent who says, look, let's look at the market and see what's realistic and where that's at. So I think that is a big step moving forward if it grows to that point with NIL.
We got two more that I want to get into before we call quits here. Let's go to Pine. AP said earlier in the year that he thinks the portal is going to be the Wild Wild West this year. Do you think that this season's early success may show up more than in the portal than in the 23 recruiting class? And how many spots would you hold back?
Well, because of the 85, again, there is no limitations on how many you can sign. It's the 85 number. So I think that, how many do you lose? I mean, how many guys, leave the program after this year? I do think that because of the success of Bayless Jones a year ago, or Theo Jackson a year ago, or Jalen Hyatt, or even Ramel Keaton, some players that probably thought, I'm just going to move on at the end of the year, are thinking, wait a minute, those guys kind of hung around and fought through it, and now they're playing. Maybe I need to stick it out. So, again, it depends on, what players leave, but, I think you're looking at Tennessee bringing in at least 5 transfers, after the season ends.
Last one goes to Brent Hubbs from Bassmaster_Vol. Why did the administration request an extension with the NCAA?
Well, a couple of things here. One, for those who have wondered, are they trying to delay something because of a potential postseason disruption or a ban that would take them out of postseason play and ruin this season? That is not the case at all. There is no bowl ban. There is no talk of bowl ban. That's not on the table. I think the NCAA's days of bowl bans and those type things of punishing players who are no longer in your program and coaches who are no longer in your program, I don't think that's going to be relevant. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think the NCAA wants to be the school that takes a Heisman Trophy finalist out of postseason play for something that happened when he was not on the roster and was not a part of things. So to me, that's not on the equation at all in talking to people. So why request this? Tennessee has wanted and continues to want this thing behind them yesterday as fast as they can. They would love for the NCAA to say, what you self-imposed to this point is great. We're good with that. Let's put this thing to bed and move on. The NCAA has not said absolutely that at this point. Tennessee's still in conversations with the NCAA, and if they can get to the agreement, then Tennessee's not going to challenge anything in the letter of allegations. But if they can't get to that agreement, then Tennessee may end up formally replying and will formally reply to those letter of allegations and go from there. But the hope would be that this gets done. And a shocking turn of events, Rob, the NCAA couldn't get to a resolution within the 90-day window of whether or not they were going to accept everything Tennessee has self-imposed at this point. That's why you have the 30-day window that's been granted to continue those discussions to where this thing may get put to bed at the end of November, as opposed to being drug out to the spring. We'll have to see.
I mean, they're still waiting to police Bill Self. Or who did he pay? Danny Manning? Is that what they're still waiting to impose penalties on Bill Self? But in all seriousness, I mean, there is not a universe that exists where Greg Sankey is allowing Tennessee to potentially turn down a playoff check. There's forget about a postseason ban with Greg Sankey at the controls in the SEC. There's no way that he is, potentially leaving a team out of that slice of the pie.
And I'll say this too: there is no new information. Okay, I mean that the letter of allegations from all of the work that the NCAA did, well, all the work that the third-party legal team did for the NCAA in conjunction with their interview process and investigation process with Tennessee, that segment is closed. Okay, so there's nothing new has come to light that says, oh, we've got to look into this thing further, or there's something there. I mean, that part of it's closed. It's all about the letter of allegations and whether or not the NCAA is going to say, yeah, we're good with what you've done. Are there not? Here's what we want you to do. And Tennessee says, okay, we're good with that. Let's finish it. It's a kind of a little bit of a negotiation or discussion phase right now. Is why the extra 30 days have been put in place.
As always, there's a lot going on around college football, especially Tennessee football, and you can find all the best coverage for Tennessee athletics, Tennessee football, Tennessee recruiting over at Volquest.com. $1 for 1 year. Football season of the ages right now. We're having so much fun over there. If you are listening and are not a member of our new family over at On3, Volquest.com, go ahead and try it out. You got $1. That's all you have to lose. $1 for 1 year. That deal is not going to last much longer. So $1 for 1 year over at Volquest.com. And as always, please subscribe to the site on YouTube. That's by searching Volquest. If you're watching this video, pound that like button. Help us get it to 500 likes. This has been the Volquest Mailbag Podcast. Appreciate you guys for sending in your questions and your comments each and every week. Thursdays right here at Volquest. For Austin Price, Rob Lewis, and Brent Hubbs, I'm Eric Kane. You guys have a great rest of your Thursday, everybody.